The geopolitical model of the nation-state is undergoing an active structural transition. We classify this as the sovereign inversion, a rapid descent into techno-feudalism driven by private asset management syndicates. Megacorporations are decoupling their operational survival and wealth continuity from civil society. They are executing this by engineering closed-loop, autonomous enclaves that can function entirely outside the public infrastructure. We will break down this operation in two phases. Phase 1 details the physical consolidation of land, water, and data. Phase 2 exposes the cyber-physical protocols required to exploit and reclaim this fixed capital infrastructure. This photograph captures the vulnerability of the physical internet. The catalyst for the corporate decoupling was the deliberate severing of subsea fiber optic cables in the Omani Trench. That single kinetic strike resulted in the immediate loss of 97% of intercontinental terrestrial traffic. Rather than repairing the physical web, holding companies like Vanguard pivoted. They repurposed their existing hyperscale AI data centers to secure local resources. The elite weaponized the infrastructure collapse. By hoarding the remaining operational capacity, they built an autarky that actively starves the civilian population to ensure their own corporate continuity. This aerial view shows a fraction of the 275,000 acres of prime domestic farmland acquired across 19 states to execute a massive land arbitrage operation. This strategy is executed by tech conglomerates and multi-billionaire sovereigns operating under the public guise of seed science and carbon offset programs. The true intent is illegal arbitrage. By purchasing distressed farmland, they exploit 19th century prior appropriation water laws to legally monopolize the underlying local aquifers. Here we see the heavy-duty industrial hardware used for fluid diversion. A single facility extracts between 1 and 5 million gallons of potable water daily to maintain evaporative cooling for their AI clusters. This extreme siphoning collapses surrounding municipal hydrostatic pressure, leaving civilian city taps entirely dry. Inside the enclave, we see the compute-to-calorie pivot in action. High-density computational server racks are co-located directly beneath massive indoor farms. This diagram illustrates the thermodynamic loop. Liquid cooling lines capture 140 degrees Celsius of server exhaust and route it directly away from the computational clusters. This industrial waste heat is injected directly into the atmospheric plenums of the vertical agricultural matrices above. This image captures the Siemens-backed loop architecture, which governs these fully automated nutrient misting matrices. This thermodynamic integration cuts baseline environmental energy overhead by exactly 52%. And permanently engineers human labor out of the caloric cycle. Operating without human oversight requires constant, uninterrupted telemetry with central cloud cores, forcing the enclaves to bypass vulnerable terrestrial networks entirely. This animation displays the Sovereign's alternative sky, a low Earth orbit constellation comprising 10,790 active satellites. Here we see the deployment of the Starshield military division. This proliferated digital backbone generates 600 terabits per second of network capacity. To utilize this network, corporate operators transition to usage-based, high-tier enterprise disaster recovery accounts, priced at over $5,150 a month per terminal. This chart breaks down the network policy. Enclaves use a differentiated services code point packet shaping algorithm to manage bandwidth during a crisis. Corporate data is tagged with premium priority tokens, ensuring uninterrupted administrative synchronization with the orbital network. Meanwhile, all non-priority, civilian internet relays are intentionally shunted into the restricted best effort bucket. This policy artificially scales up civilian packet drops to 85%. The elite purchased sovereign satellite hegemony to enforce a strict informational blockade. By engineering digital starvation, they ensure the civilian population cannot organize a resistance. The enclave's design prioritizes hyper-efficiency with zero human redundancy. This creates a terminally brittle centralized logic layer, completely exposed at its physical edge nodes. The primary objective for the resistance is hijacking the Katzen Edge satellite terminal. Breaching this cryptographic perimeter allows them to build a rogue mesh network. This image displays the analog hardware used for the exploit. It is a $25 rig built around a Raspberry Pi Pico chip and low-resistance MOSFETs to execute a voltage fault injection attack. This schematic shows the monitoring phase. The rig tracks the eMMC flash memory data line 0 pin, counting clock cycles during the terminal's initial boot sequence. The crowbar attack triggers at the exact microsecond the Silicon ROM executes its RSA signature verification loop. Precise technical tone. The analog physics of the strike are simple. The core voltage rail drops from 1.0 volts to 0 for precisely 32 nanoseconds. Internal transistors fail to reach their physical switching thresholds. This corrupts the conditional branch instruction, bypassing the secure boot sequence entirely to spawn an unrestricted root shell. Manipulating analog physics on local edge nodes completely compromises the sovereign's cryptographic math, stripping their exclusive control of the sky. The enclave's physical perimeter is guarded by autonomous multi-rotor swarms. These units run real-time 3D volumetric voxel analysis rather than scanning for two-dimensional human silhouettes. They measure minute spatial density changes using Ouster Gemini LiDAR platforms spinning at 1200 revolutions per minute. This diagram illustrates the optical ablation countermeasure. A handheld emitter captures the incoming infrared pulses, calculates their frequency, and fires counterfeit returns. By injecting a negative time-of-flight offset, the device tricks the security AI into mapping an empty spatial plane where the operators are standing. To mask their thermal signatures, operators advance directly through the 140-degree HVAC exhaust steam, completely drowning out their biological heat output. The inner perimeter relies on hardwired quad-track ground sentries. Because they run in closed, deterministic routines, they are completely immune to standard network hacking. Resistance forces utilize a high-power microwave dissolution attack, projecting a directed 2.45 GHz electromagnetic field directly onto the sentry's unshielded analog wiring. Autonomous perimeters built entirely on strict perception, decision, action loops fail catastrophically when their baseline physical inputs are spoofed or flooded with raw analog energy. The final physical breach into the enclave's logic layer is achieved by tapping a Category 6 jumper into an unauthenticated maintenance port on a local industrial switch. Operators deploy the MATRIX tool across the local SCADA network. This interface represents the SCADA mapping. The tool injects raw Modbus TCP packets, utilizing function code 0x05 to target the programmable logic controllers. This injected code overrides the local system, forcing the heavy physical drainage coils throughout the facility into an absolute, unyielding closed position. These locked coils prevent the corporate operators inside the SIF from executing a remote purge of the agricultural chemical nutrient reservoirs. Vanguard attempts a counterattack, issuing an administrative firmware rollback via ports 80 and 443 to factory reset the facility's automation logic. This map shows the Resistance's final strike. They deploy a custom firmware block via the hijacked Starlink gRPC backdoor directly into the Siemens Edge servers. The custom firmware strips Vanguard's root keys from the silicon core, permanently neutralizing the oligarch's administrative tokens. Flashing the logic core with local-first autonomy structurally inverts the enclave. It converts a closed corporate autarky into a decentralized public trust framework, instantly redirecting food and water back to the civilian population.